Hey, we're here and we're back with Mr. Jeff Sauer, that's S-A-U-E-R, and Mr. Jeff is formerly Jeffalytics, but now he's the co-founder of Measure Holdings Group LLC. They represent MeasureU.com, ProfitSchool.com, and MeasureSummit.com. Mr. Jeff is a business coach. He's an award-winning blogger, university lecturer. He was the owner of a 5-time Inc. 5000 award-winning agency, and he's a firm believer in data-driven marketing. And we're going to find out about some of Jeff's unique insights on how we need to be better working with our data and our analytics and everything that goes along with that. It can be a headache. It can be tedious, but also complicated at the same time. So Jeff is here to set us straight, help us out. So Jeff, glad to see you.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you as well. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you. And right before the show, we talked about I'm going down memory lane because I bought your course way back when. And then I had Chris Mercer on the show a bunch of years ago. And then when I was doing my research on you, I came across Mike Killen, who's another guy that I haven't talked to in like 3-4 years. So just there's all this like adjacency, I don't know, but like we sort of know similar people slightly, and I'm excited to jump in about the old and the new and AI and how things are crazy. We just need to keep up. So what's your current focus and passion?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of the same stuff that you did when you took my course, right? So I think you joined my course 6 or 8 or 9 years ago even, and it's really making data accessible to marketers, helping them be empowered to really understand this stuff, not be intimidated, and then to have that aha moment when they can actually make a decision and they can improve things. They can improve their conversion rates, their results, whatever it is, by being data driven. Because I think a lot of people say, let's be data driven, but nobody really knows what it means. I think the people who've gone through my courses definitely know what it means, because it's really showing by doing. Like, here's what it means to be data driven. It's looking at the data and coming up with insights and discovery. And so that's the main passion, and it has been for a long time. I've also expanded into helping small businesses really just navigate the changing landscape, especially with AI. You mentioned AI. It's like the elephant in the room. It's the biggest change since the internet. And I'm helping any business that wants to go AI first, so that they can have a system and do more with less, essentially.
Well, wonderful. I'm making a couple of mental notes of what I want to know from you. I want to know about this data-driven mindset and what it means to be AI first, because it's like, I think you're so right that it used to be a huge problem, people just relying on the marketing cliches, right? Someone would run a couple of split tests, and then for years later, they'd say, hey, here, you have to have an orange button. This is the only way to do it. And then you'd have people falling on the crutch of just saying, oh, well, I can't give you any advice. You have to split test it. It's like, no, like, let me look into my data, or like, give me something that works specifically for me. And you always see these viral reels, not even full videos, but the reels that say like, feed your whole LinkedIn or your whole Facebook dump into AI. And that sounds exciting. And then there's been times also where I take some promo emails I've made, posts I've made, landing page, and I tell AI fill in the gaps. And there's so many exciting things that can be done in these two extremes, right? And crunching the numbers, but also figuring out the insights. But then it also just overwhelms me. So some of these terms you throw out, like the data driven and AI first, what do these mean? And am I on the right track as far as my simultaneous enthusiasm and confusion about all of it?
Heck yeah, you are. I love it. That's where we're at right now, right? It's like it's okay to both be a little bit confused and a little bit excited, and not knowing what's going to happen. It's like the Wild West. It's like the late 1990s with the internet right now, with this world. So it's like we're basically having to reinvent ourselves. Things that worked in the past may or may not work the same way. There's more players in the market. There's change happening all the time, which can be overwhelming, but I also think it's empowering and exciting. Like honestly, I was in a little bit of a rut in the analytics industry before Google Analytics 4 came around, before AI started coming around. It was just sort of getting boring for me. It was like 20 years without a lot of changes, or 15 years. And now it's like, bam, it's exciting again. And so I found a second wind. Now, specifically around words like data driven and AI first, I'll help you unpack that for sure. data driven simply means that you make decisions with some kind of numbers to support that, as opposed to making a decision based on just your gut instinct or just the feel of things. But it's also sometimes misunderstood, because data driven, I've heard it in a negative context sometimes. People like, data driven means that you're only looking at data and you're not considering the world around you, right? You're not considering the reality, the trends. You're just like looking at a number and saying, okay, I need to make this number bigger, which I think can be very dangerous. Taking a number and saying, hey, how do I make the number bigger? Is that really what's going to move the needle for your company? Maybe, maybe not. But what I like to look at it as more like data informed. Like you shouldn't make a decision without some kind of case study, some kind of first party data that you own that's part of your company, some kind of data that backs it up. So like, for example, if you're trying to figure out who should I market to, and you're assuming that everybody in your audience is agency owners, yet you have no data to back that up, what if you were wrong? What if you're not validated? Or what if you just use Chat GPT to say, hey, come up with a marketing campaign for me to send to market to agency owners, and you had your target market wrong? They're just surfing the internet, just looking for answers, and they're giving you answers that may or may not be correct or not. Without data, there's no filtering of that, so you have no way of knowing if this is correct or not. So you can go in the completely wrong direction without any validation whatsoever. I think the thing that just understanding data, that the thing that gets intimidating and that people misunderstand, is that you don't need all the data in the world to make better decisions. You just need to think of like, okay, well, I need some kind of validation. So for a veteran marketer, it could just be one data point, one survey that you send to your audience, and you get 10 answers and you feel pretty good about it. For others, it's like you need more and more and more. But ultimately, that's how you can make a more informed decision, is just referencing and knowing that this is available to you. And if it's not available, going and finding it. AI first is basically saying, if you're going to have a business, if you have employees or a team or yourself, if you're not trying to figure out if AI can answer this question before you go to humans, then I think you're doing it wrong. Basically, AI should be the first thing you consult, and then you bring in other people as you go forward. AI is your co-pilot. It's your partner in crime. It's an answer machine that you can get in seconds instead of hours or years that it's going to take by relying on asking people. So you're just consulting AI first to see if they can know the answer. Then you can go to the other traditional channels.
Very cool. And you mentioned something really helpful about AI, is that like, I mean, with all of this, right? There's the fear that we'll just stop thinking, and that the logic channels get carried away, and that you'll do something ridiculous and stupid. And I think that the way that I've thought of AI, especially like these last couple of months, is like, well, like you said, I go there first just to see what it says. And I kind of had I have my guard up in that first iteration. I'm like, well, I'm not really sure if I'm even asking this correctly, or if I trust the answer, or maybe I don't give it enough input, and then the output, it's like, okay, I know I definitely don't want that, but it's
Yeah.
a good jumping off point. And I like how you're saying that there's data in different contexts, right? Because like you say data, I think like, oh man, am I like, is it some like e-commerce transaction history or like years worth of analytics? And you're saying, well, hey, it might just be a survey. And you're making a little bit of a connection happen here. Is like, like 25 years ago, I'd do product launches and they'd usually flop, and then I go and do all the surveying stuff, kind of like ask like 200 or 300 of my subscribers, and like kind of aggregate, like it was a low tech form of like aggregating the data. I'd say like, hey, what's your problem in your space? Where are you stuck in your business? And I like group them together. And now that I'm thinking about it, it was kind of like crunching the data, but just unofficially. And then that would usually like right the ship as far as the product launch, like listening to your people and then simplifying it down and like changing the copy and the marketing. Like, what a concept. And so as far as like, you do these this training, this teaching, you do these excellent courses, but the times have changed. And so like, what are you specifically teaching about these days? Like, where are people stuck, and then what do they get from you as far as a breakthrough after they learn from you?
Yeah. So first of all, I love that insight that like, yeah, if you don't have data, you need to create it yourself, and it can be as simple as just asking questions and then tabulating it. It's taking facts and turning it into something that you can then use, right? So I love that.
Yeah.
As far as teaching goes, principles relatively stay the same, and that is, you if you're trying to, like, I teach web analytics, like Google Analytics. you have to understand how the platform works in order to get the most out of it. You have to understand how to extend that platform in order to get it to speak the language of your business. And then you have to be able to use the technical piece like the tagging or whatever in order to get the data to match that. So there, it's like, what am I trying to measure? What's important to me? And then how do I get the system to do that, which is the technical part. The good news is that if you have a good strategy, the technical part is sort of like there's people who can do it for you. AI can tell you how to do it. It's easier than ever to do that piece. And once you have your strategy, now, if you don't have a strategy, then ultimately all the data in the world won't save you. It's just noise at that point. And so really it's still very similar from a timeless perspective, as you need to understand your strategy. What are you trying to measure? What channels are out there? What platforms are out there? Where are you sending traffic from? What are people doing on your website? And then the way that you do it is completely changed. It's when you took my course, none of that is relevant. The course that you took, that basically that platform doesn't exist anymore. So we updated the course. We did a whole brand new, tore it down to the studs and rebuilt it for how to do it in this new platform. And then you iterate on it. You're like, okay, here's what this thing is. This has changed. But ultimately, the principle, you keep on helping people realize their strategy with what's going on. So ultimately, understanding your strategy was important 10 years ago. It was important 100 years ago. It was important 20 to 25 years ago when you were launching products, right? Ultimately, it's really just asking the right questions about what are you trying to do? And then how do I have data support me? How do I get this to be my support? Now, the way that we do it, we teach live as opposed to pre-recorded courses a lot more often. We have way more support on top of it. It used to be that it would be like you could ask me a question in a forum, and then I would answer you in a forum. That was how I gave support, right? And it wasn't even guaranteed. Now we have weekly calls where somebody, or actually multiple times a week, somebody can go live and talk to one of our instructors and get their exact implementation problem solved. So we've started adding, instead of just doing it yourself, like DIY, we're more done with you, and even some done for you services on top of it, because not everybody wants to do it themselves. They want to learn the concepts, but they don't necessarily want to do it themselves. So we have a variety of ways that people can learn this and get the result they're looking for. We're more focused on the result, and then what's the best way to get to that result for your budget and for your skill level, versus saying there's one size fits all.
Very cool. I love your attention and your obsession in keeping it current and up to date and helpful. And so you're kind of filling in some helpful gaps here in that, well, it's so easy enough to say, oh, well, I want to have this funnel set up, or want to have this automation or all this AI stuff. But then there's always like, how do I get from point A to point B, right? There's, in my imagination, it's a swirl of ideas. And we want to get to the point where we're measuring, tracking, testing, seeing some results, seeing some numbers, seeing some data, making sure like the KPIs are hitting, all that good stuff. And how do we get there? And you're saying, well, you ask the questions about where am I versus where I want to get. And I think that's a cool way of looking at it, right? Because it's so easy to complicate strategy, right? You say, oh, strategy, here's my goals, and here's my milestones, and here's what I want to stay away from, and here's how it helps me. And it becomes this big old crazy answer, but you're just like, hey, it's about the questions, right? Someone takes your course, they say, well, how does this exactly apply to me? Ask questions. Or what are the steps I need to take to get all this set up? Will you ask some questions? And so as far as the recent questions, right? Things change all the time, but the principles stay the same. Have you seen any trends about like where people are always getting stuck or just needing extra help?
Yeah, for sure. Like one of the biggest changes is just all the details around privacy and and absolutes versus trends and patterns in your data. So let me unpack that for a second. So when you took my course in 2015, 2016, it was pretty much, there was no GDPR, there was no
Right.
iOS tracking protections, there was no war on cookies, there was none of these things, right? So if somebody was on your Google Analytics, I told you how to get accurate data, like absolutes, like to get your e-commerce system to match up with how many purchases were there. Like that was a module that we taught. Well, guess what? It doesn't really, like, I can't teach that anymore because it's not possible. That people are not allowing cookies. There's ad blockers. There's all kinds of other stuff that's there. So really, it's focusing less on saying what's the absolute number and how do I get parity between my analytics tool, my e-commerce platform, or my leads and my CRM system. And it's more like, okay, well, how do I extrapolate what's happening here the best way possible? How do I know how my ads are performing and try to get some kind of attribution? How do I make informed decisions about ad spend or what campaigns are working? So the data you have, which could be 30% of the data you used to have, it could be it could be less than 50% of the data you collect is the actual data that's on the people who went to your site. It's basically saying, well, how do I extrapolate that so that I know that I should be putting my money into Facebook ads versus Google ads versus organic versus whatever. So it's really helping people deal with that level of uncertainty and to still make the right decision, still make the right spending decisions with where they go their marketing, the right bets that they would place on channels they choose, and still helping them be accountable to their organizations. So that principle is still there. The way that we do it is so different now because it's not like basically everybody had to unlearn that like you could have the same, you could know exactly how much search traffic you got. You could know exactly what keywords somebody was searching for on Google. Like everything is just getting less and less transparent and harder to deal with. And so a lot of it's just dealing with that change to say, okay, well, we still need to do marketing. We still need to put something in the market. We still need to connect our product or service with the marketplace. We still need to spend money. So how do we do the best with what we have and make directional advice? And so we like, for example, in our MeasureU, we have this thing called the measurement marketing framework. And it's still, the difference between marketing measurement and measurement marketing is that marketing measurement means that you do marketing first and then you try to make up some numbers to know whether it worked or not. Measurement marketing is you start with what you want to measure, what your strategy is, and then you apply your marketing channels based on what your strategy is and what the numbers are telling you. So it's sort of like a way of being data driven. And so with measurement marketing, you're still building these dashboards that tell you where to spend your money, what is working right now, where things are not working, and you can place educated guesses on fixing things. And that's the same whether you have 30% of visitors or 100%, because it's really just telling you where you have leaks in your funnel.
Very cool. So a new mindset is needed to be had, and it's just, yeah, it seems like if someone tried to figure this out on their own, just from like their own research or their own chat GPTing, it's like it's so difficult unless you have someone who's on your site who kind of has this proper mindset. And so would you say, since you're a data-driven guy, is there like a breakdown, or is there a pie chart of like different people that need your advice? Like, is there a lot of like website analytics, e-commerce analytics, like email tracking? Like, what's the breakdown as far as like the people that say, hey, I need help being data driven, I need Jeff and his training to do it? Like, who comes to you?
Yeah, we have three personas that we cater to and that we help. And so the first one is the me crowd. They need to learn analytics for themselves. It's either because it's part of their job, it's because mostly it's because it's part of their job, or they want to get a job advancement by having more skills. And so they might go through our courses, pay their own way because they want that skill to be on their resume. They want to be able to start a freelance business at some point. They need that skill and they're doing it. They're investing in themselves, the bet on themselves crowd. And we love them because I know that's who I was, right? And a lot of respect to somebody who bets on themselves. That's about 20 to 25% of our audience. We have them, which is people who are doing this for somebody else. They're doing this for clients mostly. So they're learning these skills. They're staying up to date so they can do this for a client. That's your freelancer. That's your agency. That's your consultant. That's your coach type person. About 40% of our audience, and they're the ones who are, their business is sort of paying it. They're reinvesting in their business and keeping their skills sharp. And then there's the us, which is the company is doing this. We're gonna put our whole team through this so we can get our strategy in place. That's the remaining people, and they're basically saying, let's just make this a competency in our company. Let's become data driven. Let's implement measurement marketing, and let's get this in place. Now, the cool thing about us is that we actually give away our framework for free. Inside of at MeasureU.com, if you join our free community, we have this toolbox that has like 40 plus frameworks, calculators, ways of explaining this to your company, and even the measurement marketing framework. Everything's there. Where our business model is If you need us to teach it to you, you can pay for that. And then if you need coaching or you need an extra level of support on top of it, then you can join our premium programs. Because that's often what happens. And you were touching on this earlier in your question, is that a lot of people, they they can learn the information, but they don't actually get it implemented because they don't have the expertise. They don't have the confidence. They don't have that person who's done it 100 times or 1,000 times on their shoulder. And some people will still keep on doing it because they don't have the budget, or they can't afford it, or they're just not sure about it. Those people will just continue to do DIY. But for those who are like, I just want the result, that's where they come looking for us, and that's where they join our premium programs.
Very cool. And you made so many helpful points in our discussion here, Jeff, and especially this last one here of like, well, if you tried to piece it together yourself and you didn't have, you mentioned there's like the expertise and there's the confidence and there's like that deep knowledge of all the nooks and crannies. If you're figuring that out, then it's so easy for distractions to crop up, for a project to take too long, and then you don't really have motivation and it's kind of weighing other things down. And by the time you figure it out, then there's the next update, right? The next Google slap, the next AI breakthrough. And I can definitely see the value in, if you have multiple people working together, if you have a whole organization, you get everyone on the same page. Because if one person tries to learn it and they say, well, first I need to figure it out and then teach it to others and others figure it out my way, then it changes again. And so I can see the value in everyone just going to you and using your framework and using your calculators and going through your training and asking those questions and getting the done with you help if that's needed. So that way it's like, man, life's too short. And that all this AI stuff is really just going to accelerate the problems that we have and the need to keep up. I mean, there's all like the deep research kind of stuff happening and the agentic stuff happening, and who knows what's going to happen next. And even like that little insight you had there about how it used to be about making the data match up, right? It used to be with when cookies were accurate, but then now no matter what you do, they won't match up. And so if you were trying to solve that problem, you'd waste time you won't get back on something that you can't do anything about. So here's the better strategy, a better way of doing it. And so as far as some next steps here, if someone says, man, I'm so excited listening to Jeff, I'm tapping into this new mindset, I need to get my analytics, my data figured out, but doing it myself is an exercise in frustration. I need the help of Jeff and his team. There's MeasureU.com. Is that the logical place to go, or are there other resources?
Yeah, so MeasureU.com has the community, and we'd love for you to join the community and get the resources and participate. We have thousands of people in there. It's very active. It's probably the most active community that I know of in this space, where people are just there to help. We have 20 plus mentors who are experts who are just in the community trying to help you and who just want to help you. So that's really fun. And so that community is awesome. We have a sister brand called ProfitSchool, which we barely even have a chance to talk about that one, right? That one's really more about AI first business. We basically made the decision not too long ago that we're only going to be AI first business, specifically for consultants and agencies and freelancers who want to grow without having to necessarily grow a team, or do more with less. Exactly there. So that's at ProfitSchool.com, and that has a similar community. Basically, since they're sister brands, they have a very similar format, just different focus area. So a lot of my teaching these days is going over to that Profit School crowd and teaching that piece, teaching AI. We're doing an AI first summit or AI first challenge where people can, if they want their AI business to go AI first, they can jump in and learn there. So we have a lot of cool stuff at Profit School. Basically, getting on the mailing list for either of those will let you know exactly what we're doing and what the latest and greatest is. And then you mentioned MeasureSummit.com as well. We have that conference every fall. So the next one will be coming up in October.
Very nice. And this AI first concept, it's a amazing idea because, like you said, there's so many things that are just done because that's the way it's always been done. And there might be a AI shortcut automation way to make it work if you just kind of worked on the problem. And then guess what? Now that doesn't require a person, and that person can be tasked with something higher level or more management based or higher paying. Like there's bigger, better problems to be solved, and let's put the machines to work to it, right? That's what they're here for. So we said MeasureU.com. That's MEASUREU.com, where you can transform your marketing with a data-driven community dedicated to helping you increase conversions and boost your ROI. So if you are the kind of person that is short on time and you want to dive into bite-sized actionable courses that give you immediate answers from strategy to execution, that's how you get that data-driven marketing aspect figured out. And then really exciting, Jeff said that as far as growing your business faster with AI is ProfitSchool.com. And Profit School gives you these expert-led trainings and strategies, business boosting resources, and you can start off with that at ProfitSchool.com and MeasureU.com to get your data-driven and analytics and conversions figured out. And before I let you go, Mr. Jeff, it's time for the end point, the scary part of the show, where I try to put you on the spot, where I ask you for a quote or lesson that has served you that you can pass on to us. So what comes to mind for a quote or lesson?
Yeah, I love this question, by the way. So as I was thinking about, or as I'm thinking about how to do this, the answer is it used to be that some people might have been 10 steps ahead of somebody else, right? So it's like you got to stay ahead of the game. And maybe we thought that the standard needed to be 10 steps ahead or 20 steps ahead or 2 steps ahead. I think you can get by just trying to stay 1 step ahead and maybe even a half a step ahead. Everybody's learning this thing. Everybody's trying to figure it out. It's like the late 90s, early 2000s. We're figuring out business models around AI. We're figuring out what's going to happen. It's like the early internet. And if you recall back then, there's a lot of 20-something-year-olds who were the experts because they were young and they were learning. I was that guy. Like I was a 20-year-old internet expert who everybody would call trying to figure this thing out. And I made a career out of it. I didn't know anything, but I made a career out of it because I was just first mover advantage. Like all you need to do is just get in there, experiment today. Nothing's too late. Everything's changing anyway. Just have fun with it. Dedicate 10, 20% of your time to staying 1 step ahead of who you were yesterday, and you will thrive and you'll be great at what you're doing. There's going to be a lot of businesses that there's going to be a lot of need for this. I think that it's basically going to be the top 1% of performers are going to be who set things going forward. And it's going to be people who are using AI, who can verify the facts, who can understand how to get the outputs, who can train agents, who can train all these things. And so, yeah, just be even a half a step ahead and you will go far. But trying to avoid this thing like it's going to go away, it's just not. It's cat's out of the bag. So see what you can do to use it to your advantage.
I love it. Embrace it. Be a step ahead or a half step ahead. And it just seems like the exciting, amazing times are back, aren't they, Jeff? It's like back when if you made one website or you made an app or you made a SaaS and it really like blew up and just became something that like grew like crazy. I mean, TikTok came out of nowhere. DeepSeek came out of nowhere. There's all these stories of just like companies you never heard of and the user base just like grew like crazy. And so the good times are back as long as we embrace AI and as long as we have our focus in the right place. But if you try to do it by yourself, it's an easy path to focus on the wrong things or to get bogged down or just to take too much time. So you need some help. You need a community and a mastermind. And that community is ProfitSchool.com if you're AI focused and MeasureU.com if you're data driven focused. And we'll see you there. And thank you, Mr. Jeff, for finally letting me meet one of my heroes, which is you, and helping us out with what we need to know. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right.